안녕하십니까?
Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to BIX 2022. And this session is about the CDMO expansion strategy. And my name is Yoon Jung-won, and I'm honored to serve as a moderator for this session. We are in the midst of the summer, and thank you very much for joining us despite your busy schedule. Now, without further ado, we would like to begin. So the session is about the CDMO business expansion strategy. Up until today, CDMO has required and focused mainly on the antibody drugs that requires a lot of upfront investment. However, nowadays, cell therapies and gene therapies, as well as the messenger RNA-based vaccines, and also the diagnosis devices are also the part of the CDMO business nowadays. So in this session, we'll be talking about the CDMO and how they are expanded to various areas. And we have brought together the representative from leading Korean companies to hear about their strategies. So each presenter will be given 20 minutes for a presentation. And then after the three presentations are over, we are going to have 20-minute panel discussion. So if you do have any questions,
and the next presenter will be Mr. An Jong-sung, Vice President of BINEX. He's responsible for the new business strategy. Good morning, everyone. As was introduced, I'm An Jong-sung of BINEX. So I have given you the presentation here. So 20 minutes is not a long one, not a short one. I have my pressure that I have to finish it very quickly. So the market trend has been explained by my previous speakers. I'd like to just skip that part before going into the actual presentations. So I'll be just brief and punctual. So what I'm going to give you is the small mid-scale CDMO. So if you understand the terminology of the small and medium scale CDMO, so Celltrion's idea of the small and medium scale is the 7,500. It's Celltrion scale, as we call it. Our criteria of the small scale and mid scale is the 50 to 5,000. So between 50 and 5,000 liter scale, which can be very small compared to other companies like Celltrion. We are focused on these areas. For example, we are talking about the antibody experience, and the 50 and 500 or 5,000 is for the seed culture, mostly in other people's ideas. But in our scale, it can be a seed product. So we can also have this section. So what I'm going to tell you is as follows. And I'm going to give you what changes are happening in the biologics market. And also in terms of the small and mid-scale business, how can we see the businesses coming out of this? And how and why we have to work on this part. So I would like to give you also how my company, BINEX, is participating in this market creation. So let's just skip this part. It only shows that BINEX is a growing company. And also in this slide, I'm going to give you what kind of technological changes are happening in this market. And also recently, we are seeing some growth of the market and what are the diversifying factors into the market. First one is engineering biology. So this is about the production. We have diversified methodologies of the production, and we have the CRISPR genome editing technology, and that has been evolved a lot recently so that it can be a foundation and basis for other new products. So AI technology is the same. It is an enabler of other products. Let me move on. So you can see that diversification is happening in the bio market as you witness every day, especially cancer products are really diversified. As you see from this slide, we have the antibody, new drug development, we have bi-specific antibodies. They are all becoming blockbusters nowadays. And after that, we can also see what kind of trends we are witnessing. There's really a variety of it. We have exosome, we have these gene therapy, we have cell therapy, and also recently we call it miracle product for cancer products. We have the 80% success ratio and the overall survivability. Of course, the price is so high, not yet, but we are seeing such developments in various forms nowadays. And this slide shows the recent trend. So this was announced and published very recently. After the COVID-19, since 2020, what kind of changes we can see and we can expect in the future. So in terms of the biologics, do you think that the investment level is going down or the diversity is withdrawn? But actually, the survey shows that in 2020, the investment scale has gone up. Of course, we are in the midst of the economic crunch, but biologics market is inducing more investment than before. Let's come to Korea, and Korea also sees the variety of items of the biologics products. There are various trials as well. And in the market of overall, half of them are mostly for biologics. They are, of course, in the development stage. So drugs in the development phase are taking about 50% of the total market. So the biologics and biopharmaceutical products are mostly with the antibodies and proteins. So we have protein new products which are also taking up the half of it, but the rest of them, the other half is being diversified in like gene therapy and gene modified stem cell and cell and gene therapy. And the cell gene therapeutics are now coming up. So we can call them a state-of-the-art biological products that are expanding their scope in the market. Now let's come to the CDMO market. Having said that, biologics market has been diversified in terms of the items and the technology levels. CDMO is keeping up with the trend. So we can see how growing the CDMO market is, as seen from this previous slide, we can also witness it. Then who are the users of the CDMOs? So let's look at this slide. Out of the total CDMO market, about 30% of them are, I'm showing you the by company. So between the big pharma and small and medium-sized companies, we can compare them by dividing them. The small and medium-sized companies can be a developer or the system producers. And the small companies prefer to use CDMO, the CDO and CMOs by 70%. So they're using the CDOs or CMOs for their development and the clinical trials, and they can also put them into the commercialization for their products using and through the CDMOs. Why is that? If you think of why, now I think you know the answers already, but we can tell you that the small-sized companies like today, the big farmers are the exceptions, of today. They are not doing it everything alone. They are in alliance with other companies for some of their products for the marketing as well. But if you're thinking of these small and medium-sized companies, there can be a lot of risks, and the risks can be shared. They do not have to take the burden of all the risks incurred. So if necessary, they can use and commit experts for the areas. And the biggest reasons and biggest needs, so to speak, are the process development and optimization. So it's about process. They want to share the burden of process. When they start drug development or drug discovery, they have to look into what the needs are, and they just start doing that. But after that phase, they have to put into the process. And also the state-of-the-art technology emphasizes the importance of process. The cell therapy regards the process and the therapy at the same level. So it means that both of them are very important. So they want to have the expertise of other experts. And also the experience GMP can be another problem, and the budget can be also the reason for using CDMO. And in some countries, regulatory affairs can be the reason to choose CDMO. They seek the help from the CDMOs for that matter. Now, what are the requirements for the CDMO companies? So I called it as a demand to the CDMO. What can CDMOs can do for you? Roughly speaking, we have three things that we can expect. First is all-around CDMO. So CDMO companies can now do the cell line development, and they can also do the IND submission as well. So they can have the end-to-end services from cell line development to IND submission. They are asked to do that, and they have to be able to do that. So the CDMO companies should provide supports at each step depending on what they really require. And also in terms of the state-of-the-art products, this is quite important. It means that it should be flexible. So they should expect flexible services from CDMOs. It means that depending on the items, the CDMO services should be differentiated. For example, they should be in the multi-scale. Multi-scale means the small scale and the large scale at the same time. If it is about the cell therapy, they have the customized and tailored line as well. So it can be a very, very minor miniature scale, but they can be specifically for certain clients. And also they require some big scale in some cases if it is in a large production, but the cell therapies of them most of the time can be very, very small in scale, like 50 liters or 500 liters, because it's for the very targeted segments only. So it can, if it is microscope, it can be 500 to 5,000 liters. So they all have different scales that need. So the culture technology should be fit for the items that they have. Therefore, these services should be differentiated according to the scale. The long-term collaboration is the third one. It is only natural to expect this from the CDMO. Once you start working with the CDMO should be reliable until the end of the day. And if you continue to work with the one CDMO all the way, that would be the best. So far, I have given you what we are expecting from the market. And the next, I would like to talk about Binex, what Binex is doing, because I'm from Binex. So I can explain what we are doing and where we are. So of course, Binex is not the only company, and there are many more who are doing all of these things, but I can emphasize that Binex is doing some of these things. So we want to be in the field of the all-around CDMO services. For example, we have started the cell line development, we have process development, and the cell line analytics, and the QC and IND submission. This is a series of development processes. So all throughout this series, a CDMO company should be able to accommodate all the services if they can. So first requirement is about the manufacturing. So if GMP is very good with one company, then the GMP can be committed to that company. And overall, prior to that, if we have a concept, for example, we have checked the POC, and then if we don't know what's coming afterward, then we can start with the processing development in the beginning, along with the CDMO. So there can be one requirement from the CDMO. So the process should be the good basis for having the profits. The COG, the COGS can be enhanced, so the cost of goods. So the profits can be ensured down the road. Then is it saying that the CDMOs should be able to do everything from A to Z? No, not really. Because if they can, it's good. But if the CDMOs cannot do all of these things, these CDMO companies can also work with the third-party affiliates. And we have very famous third-party partners like the Thermo and the other companies mentioned here in this slide. So these development companies can be committed altogether since they are working with other alliances as well. As you have understood already, so this is the series of the processes that we have to do. If the CDMO can do everything after basic research, it doesn't really say that they can really do all these things. They have their possibility of working on these areas, and sometimes they require this third party support as well. So, but they're likely to be able to work on these things. We have the different requirements in the phase one, in the phase two, and the phase three from the clinical trials. You don't have to expand the scale from phase one because you know that you have to expand it further in phase two and three. So if you are able to scale up over time, that would be great. Another requirement in the clinical trial is CMC. So CMC, the chemistry, manufacturing, and controls, is something that should be more robust as time goes by, as the phases develop. So you have to be able to provide more tight CMC documentation. So CMOs can provide the CMC documentation. So the flexibility and client-orientedness is also another requirement from CDMOs, as you can understand. So we're talking about clients that can be also different items because clients are coming with different items. So if they can work together, it would be the best. So what does Binex do in order to do that? We have various types of reactors. We have different scales here, starting from the 50th. We also actually have 25 liters as well. We have mammalian ones and microbial ones as well as all these new facilities. They have the 200 to up to 5,000 liters for the mammalian. And we call it a small to medium scale from 50 to 5,000. Here is the same thing. So we do not have the biggest batch size in the world, but as I said, 5,000 liters can be accommodated by us. So we are up to that level. And also for the final products, we have liquid, localized, and the syringe can be available. So that's what we're doing. So we make these types available to you. RA support is another thing that we can provide. I'm not saying that we are doing everything from A to Z, but we are able to support this one as well. For example, the Binex has been working on the more than 1,000 batches, and DSDP has been our responsibility as well. What we have created so far is the ILP's projects related. So we are gearing toward the FDA. We have 6 projects finished, and we also have some projects to China and Japan as well as Europe. Of course, these projects have not been so big in scale, but we have diversified our clients so far overseas. We have been working in the global markets. The last page. So long-term collaboration means that we are starting to work together from the discovery to the commercialization. So in the whole process, with that time sequential changes, starting from how we can work together. From CDMO companies, you can expect many things down the road. And from the perspectives of the CDMO, we can contribute to the market growth to help the clients, and those clients can also expand their markets. This is a synergy making relationship between the sponsors and the CDMOs. What I feel so proud in my work is that we can have the better communications. We can really communicate well about what requirements are from the sponsors. So if Binex is too big, maybe we can be slow, but we have the flexibility as a company to start from the small scale as well. So we can be experimental. Sometimes we can be also accommodating the commercial needs of the companies. Since Binex is a small and medium-sized scale, that we have some flexibility to bend to for the needs of the customers. And the state of the art in the tech biology is when it's a thing of the future. Maybe we can work on that as well. So my time has elapsed. So yes, I do appreciate your presentation. We have time for one or two questions. If you have, please raise your hand. The microphones will be given to you. I don't see any hands up. So probably we can wait until the end of this session to have the general discussion. Let's move on.
Next presenter is Chief Executive Officer of DXNVX, Mr. Park Sang-tae. Please. Good morning. I am the CEO of DXNVX. My name is Park Sang-tae. I actually had some difficulty when I came up with this title of my presentation because my company is not a known player in CDMO business. As mentioned by Mr. Yu, the CDMO actually it ranges in diverse areas, especially when it comes to diagnostic devices. A lot of players have entered into the CDMO business for production and distribution. And also, if you look at like the supplement food products, many companies do not really have their in-house product facilities. Rather, they rely on external parties for production. So CDMO is pretty prevalent in various industries. So we also have the IV diagnostic business, and we have the genomic business as well. So that's why we were naturally engaged in the CDMO and CRO business. And recently, we joined the Korea Biotechnology Industry Association. And I was able to meet the vice president of the organization, and I was given this opportunity to make presentation today. So I thought that this could be a very good opportunity for my own learning as well. That's why I am here, and I want to learn. And the previous speakers already covered many of the slides that I prepared, so I think that I can actually speed up. So I'll be focusing more on the other types of the CDMO businesses, including the in vitro diagnostic devices, not just the biologics, and also even for CRO business. So these could be included and in all the phases after research, and in the sense. And also the CRO can be provided as a service mainly in research areas. So here you can see some basic concept of CDMO, and I will also talk about what is CREAM, CRAM. Then I'll be talking about our company and our business areas. I will go over the history for the beginning of my presentation. This slide was from the US Bio Convention, and there is a magazine called BioProcess Insider. And I participated in the session because I knew the editor of this magazine, and in fact, this slide is excerpted from his slide. So CDMO refers to the production facilities, and this is to make the use of the existing production facilities. For example, like the Merck and also other companies, they actually contribute a lot for the start of the CDMO business, and they have led this business today. And in the advance of the 2000s, CDMO started to be recognized as a standalone business, and we now have a lot of standalone CDMO specialized players, including Lonza. And then in year 2010, we started to see the booming era of CDMO, and we now see diverse types of
그
the
관점에서
CDMO players.
자체적으로 아예 CDMO 사업을 위해서 펀딩을 통해서 만들어진 회사들이
So
있는가
there are
하면
several
여전히
players which are
상하에서
created
스핀오프
only
되는
for
회사들이 많이
CDMO
있고요.
business from the
그리고 가장
ground,
특징으로 꼽는 것 중에
or
하나가
there are
아시아나다의
players
원조
spin off
특허인데
from the
진짜
pharma
아시아
companies
지역에
to
있는
be
회사들이
specialized in
굉장히
CDMO
많이
business.
뛰어들었다는
And
거죠.
also the
여기
many Asian
그
players started
사업에서
to
인용을 하는
penetrate
데는
into this market.
삼성바이오틱스랑
So for
우시를
example, like the
들었지만
Samsung
지금
Biologics and
셀트리온이나
UC, and
바이오엑스라든가
but
중국에도 굉장히 많은
not just them,
CDMO가 있지
the
않습니까?
Celltrion
그런
and
부분이
also many Chinese
전체적으로
players,
CDMO
they are engaged in
이볼루션의
CDMO
어떤
business, and they
특징적인
have
패턴이었다.
contributed to the
이런 얘기를
CDMO
좀 들을 수가
evolution.
있었습니다. 그리고 나서 요즘에 와서는 그럼
And
어떤
then
형태의 CDMO가
recently,
새롭게 또 나타나고
let's take a look at what
발전하고
types of the
있느냐
new
이런
emerging
얘기를 봤었을
players are
때
there in
사실은 이제
CDMO
아까
business.
윤 사장께서 말씀하신
As
것처럼
mentioned by Mr. Yoon,
코로나죠 실제적으로 이제 이게
I
글로벌
think COVID has made a
팬데믹이라는 이
significant
상황이
ramification for our
다른 형태의
business. This global
CDMO들이 만들어날
pandemic
수
has
있게끔
actually
도움을
led
준
to the
셈이
creation
됐거든요.
of diverse
뭐
types of
가장
CDMO
기본적으로는
players.
백신의
For
원료가 되는
example, like
부분이라든지
for the
뭐 관련돼
substances
있는
of the vaccine
바이러스라든지
production
또
or
이제
the
감염 질환이라는 게
virus-related
바이러스만 있는 게
products.
아니기
And
때문에
also, the infectious diseases are not
바이러스성이라든지
just
박테리아 관련돼 있는
spread through the
기초
virus,
기술과
but bacteria
전문적인
and other
경험을 갖고
vectors as
있는
well.
회사들이
So we have some
자신들이 갖고
players who do
있는
have
기술과
experiences
경험
and
그리고
expertise in
퍼실리티를
these
활용해서
areas,
새로운 형태의
and tapping in
CDMO로
their
발전을
expertise
시켰다.
and their
또
production
나중에
facilities.
물론
They are now
리서치
evolving
단계에
to
있는
become a
CRO
very new
형태에
types
있어서
of
되게 독립적으로
CDMO
B2C 기반의
players.
서비스를
And also
제공하는
they
그런
provide
회사들도 많이
B2C,
있었습니다.
and there are
그리고
many
또 하나가
independent players
사실은
providing
이제
B2C
코로나가
business.
아닌 그러니까 글로벌
And
팬데믹이
another
아니어도
push
기술의 발전에
for the
따라서
CDMO
사실 아까 안
evolution
부사님이
was
설명하셨지만
that technological
진 테라피랑 셀 테라피가 트렌드
development,
중에
because
하나지
gene therapy
않습니까?
and cell
그렇기
therapy are
때문에
now
셀 테라피, 진
thriving
테라피랑
these
관련돼
days.
있는
So in
많은
relation with
회사들이
the gene
새롭게
and cell
만들어졌고요.
therapies, a lot of
기존에
new
있는
players
회사들도
and
관련돼
companies
있는
have been
부분들을 많이
created.
생산을 하고
And also
또 서포트를
existing
하고 있지만
businesses have
소규모 회사들도
produced a lot of
각각의
products
본인들의
as well.
특징을 살려서
And there are
그
also
비즈니스와
many small
함으로써
scale
굉장히
players
많은 종류의 CDMO가 새롭게
specialized in the cell and
생겨났다라고
gene
이렇게 볼
therapies,
수가
which led
있습니다.
to
그래서 이런 부분들이
the
지금까지
active
알려져 있는 일반적인
and
CDMO
strong birth of
비즈니스의
the
일종의
CDMO
역사
players.
그리고
So
이제
this
현재
is
상황
the
이렇게
history
말씀드릴
of
수 있지 않을까
CDMO,
싶습니다.
and so far I have talked about
그렇다면
how
한 번 더
CDMO
정리를
business
해볼
has
필요가
evolved.
있는데요.
So put in
CDMO
summary,
서비스가 아까 사실은 이제 안 부사님 말씀하신 것처럼 굉장히
as
많은 부분을
mentioned
다
by Mr.
커버할 수
Yoon,
있습니다.
CDMO can
근데
actually
또
cover broad
앞단에 이제
areas of
CRO 서비스라는
businesses.
부분들은
But
이
in the
앞단에
upfront
있는
side,
부분들을
you
굉장히 많이
have CRO,
매개하거든요.
and
그
CRO
내용을
is highly
보시면
related with the
생각보다
research and
폭이
drug
굉장히
development.
넓습니다. 뭐 메디컬
And it's
라이팅부터
pretty extensive.
큐레이션하는
So
데이터,
starting from medical
전문가를
writing
하는
to
회사라든지
curation, data,
혹시 저희가
biostatistics.
생각하기에 저게 자체적으로 비즈니스가
So
될까라고
you may
생각할 수 있는
wonder
부분도
whether
의외로
this may be
굉장히
too small
비즈니스적으로
for
잘 돼
business, but
있고
in fact we
해외의
have pretty
경우에는 또
sizable
특히나 이제
business
영어로
for each of
소통되는
them.
부분이 많이 있기 때문에
And
영문
also
라이팅에 대한
the
부분도
English medical writing
전문적으로
does also
비즈니스화
have a high
성공 사례가
demand
굉장히
as well,
많습니다. 왜냐하면 소통되는 언어가 아무래도
because
그런
the
부분이 많고
communication language,
그리고
lingua
이제
franca,
이런
is
형태가
English
겹쳐져 있는 영역이
for
있다라는
overseas
부분도 또
markets.
중요한 것이고 많은 부분들이 결국은 이제 좀 협력 모델에서 각각의
And
필요성이 있다라는 관점에 있어서는 중요한
also,
포인트를 좀 제시하는 게 아닌가 이렇게 생각을 합니다.
so it requires a
때문에
strong
사실 이
collaboration.
관점에 있어서 물론 이제 텀이라는 거는 어떻게 보냐에 따라서
And of course, the
이게 꼭
terms,
뭐
depending on your
그렇다 아니다라고 말할
perspectives,
수는 없을 수도
it could
있습니다.
be
근데 이제
interpreted
일각에서
diversely, but
이제 새로운 형태의 이제 CDMO, CRO 서비스 특히나
we
이제
now have new
CRO와
types of
CDMO
the
영역에
CDMO
겹치는
and
부분에
CRO
있어서
services, and there are a
크렘이라는
lot of
단어를 좀 사용을
duplication
하고
between
있더라고요.
CRO and
그래서 이제 이게
CDMO.
Contract
That's why the
Research and
term CREM
Manufacturing
is
그리고 더
coined, which
나아가서는
stands for
최근
Contract
기사들은
Research and Manufacturing.
매니지먼트까지
And
포함하는
also
경우가
the
많이
recent
있어요.
newspaper
근데
articles
기본적으로는
include
CDMO
the
서비스의 기본이
manufacturing
당연히 컨설팅을 포함하기 때문에
and consulting in
매니지먼트가 있는
CRAM
거는
as well, and
맞습니다만
management in
이런 부분들이
CRAM.
어떤 형태로 작용되느냐에 대해서는 뭐 이 기술적인 부분뿐만 아니라
So not
이게
just the
연계돼서
technical
경험을
aspects,
나누는 게 중요하다는 관점에서
sharing
뭐 다시 한번
experience and
부각이 된 게
expertise
아닌가
is
싶고요.
important. That's why I
이
think the
시장
importance
자체도
of
생각보다
CRAM is
성장률이 꽤
growing.
있고 이제 특징적인
And
게
this
하나가
market is also
경쟁자가
pretty
그렇게
has
많은
high
부분은 아니다.
potential, and
그러니까
it doesn't
영역이
really
겹쳐 있다
have
보니까 플레이어가 그렇게
a lot
많지는
of
않다라는
players.
관점도 좀 있는 것 같아요. 또 이런 부분이 또 중요하고 기사를 봐도 사실은 이제
And
마찬가지죠.
if you look at the newspaper
항상 그
articles,
올라운드 혹은 또 원스톱 서비스를 제공한 CDMO만
all-round
필요한 게
players
아니거든요.
and
그렇기
one-stop
때문에
service
크레미
providers
역할을
are
하거나
needed,
이제
but they
콜라보레이티브
cannot take
CDMO라는
care
거는
of the
이제
entire market.
기술적으로 자체가 CDMO에 부족함이 있더라도 협력을
So
통해서 시너지를
even
낼 수 있는
players
부분들이 굉장히
with
중요하다는
some
관점으로
lack
제가
of
이
technological
단어를 썼었고요.
capacity in
기사를
CDMO,
보시더라도
if they
뭐
can create
꼭 큰
synergy effect
회사가
with
그
other
역할을 할 수 있는
players,
건 아니고
they can
이슈만
still
대신
work.
특히
And
이제
there are a lot
스몰
of
사이즈
niche
플렉서블
markets that we
CDMO
can target
역할은
as well.
분명히
So
존재한다.
small size,
이런
flexible
부분에 대해서
CDMOs,
강조한 뭐
they
기사나
have
최근
their own
트렌드들이
roles
많이
to play
있습니다.
in the
그런
market.
부분에 대해서도 어느 정도 소개를 시켜드리는 게 맞다고 생각을
So this
했고요.
is something that I would like to
그리고
share
이제
with you.
다른 이제 한 업체에서 정리를 해놓은 걸 보시게 되면은
And if you look at this
실질적으로
slide,
이제 포함되어 있는 영역이 굉장히 넓죠.
you can
근데 이제
see
이 회사
that the
같은
CREM
경우는 이제 지향하는 바가
is
크렘이면서 사실은 원스톱 서비스를 지향하기 때문에 그런데
covering the
제가
various
보여드린 거는
areas.
이렇게 해야 된다는 관점이 아니라 다양한
And you don't
영역의
have to
특징들이
provide
있기
all these
때문에
services.
어떤 회사들이 본인들의
But because we
비즈니스를
have very
이끌어
extensive
나가면서
business
그런
areas,
영역에서
and
본인들만의
therefore
특화된
you
기술과
can
경험이
develop
있다면
your
충분히
own
비즈니스로
specialized
활용할 수 있을
expertise in certain
거다라는
areas, and
관점에서 이제
you can make
보여드린
use of
거라고
them to
생각해
develop
주시면
your
되고.
businesses.
자, 그러면 이걸 한번 정리해 보면 사실은 뭐 다 아시는
So
얘기고
summarizing
두
what I have said
연사분께서
so far,
설명하신 내용에
I
다
believe
들어있는
that you are
건데
actually aware
이제
of
제가 뭐
all
특별히
these things that
크렘이라고
I
썼지만
talked
이제 CDMO
about.
관점으로 보시면 되는데
So here, although I said the
파이낸셜리
CREM, but I think
저희가
it's
투자
equivalent to
설비
CDMO.
활용을 제대로 하는 거는 기본적으로 당연히
So making the
중요한
use
포인트이기
of
때문에
the
이게 크렘
facilities that we
입장에서도
invest,
파이낸셜리 되게
that's
중요한
just a
포인트라고 보는
basic.
거고요.
And even
또
for
하나는
CREM,
이제 리소스
that's a
부분들을
very important
활용할 수
requirement.
있게끔
And
한다라는
also
것
for
자체는
resource
비즈니스 활용성에서
utilization,
굉장히 중요한 부분. 그리고 또 하나는
this is very important
완성돼
as well.
있는 뭐 올라운드 뭐 혹은 원스톱 서비스 CDMO나
And also
뭐
we
되게
have
풀사이즈
all-round
CRO
one-stop
같은
service
경우에는 이게
CDMOs
진짜
or
단순히
full-size,
특화돼 있는 서비스를
large
빠르게 제공할 수
CDMO
있는
players,
반면에
and they
스몰
can
사이즈
provide
혹은 이제
services at
바이오텍
a very
비즈니스
fast speed.
스타트업들이
However,
본인들의 비즈니스를
the startups
CDMO화
and the
할때
small
그런
sized
경우에는
players,
이 CDMO
when
기회를
they
통해서
develop
데벨롭할 수
their
있는 또 하나의
CDMO
기회가 생긴다는
businesses,
점도 굉장히
again through the
중요하고요.
CREM, they can
사실
have
이제 묶여 있다고
opportunities
보셔도
to
되겠지만
level up
이번 세션뿐만 아니라 어제 기조 이제
and
토론에서도
to
중요한
upgrade
것 중에
their
하나가 오픈
businesses.
이노베이션이잖아요.
And open
사실
innovation
오픈
is key
이노베이션을
for
하기 위해서는
CRAM.
투명성이
In order to
보장되는
have
한도
open
내에서
innovation, you have to have
콜라보레이션을 굉장히
transparency
잘해야 된다고
and strong
생각합니다.
collaboration.
그렇기 때문에 이런 형태의 비즈니스와 협력 모델을 통해서
So through these
본인들이
types of
갖고
the
있던
businesses
기술을
and
좀
partnership
더
models,
큰 시장에
you
내놓을 수 있는
can
기회가 될
introduce
뿐만
your
아니라
technologies to
새로운
bigger and larger
형태의
markets.
비즈니스를 만들 수
And
있는
not only
제품을
that,
생산하거나
you can
기획할
also
수 있는
create
기회도 분명히
products
생길 것이다. 이렇게 생각을 하고 있습니다.
that can create
같은
new
관점에서
market
당연히 클라이언트
opportunities.
입장도 마찬가지죠.
And from client's
코스트
perspective,
이펙티브하게 되기
financially,
때문에
yes,
본인들이
it
갖고
could be
있는
cost
되게
effective.
제한된 버짓을
And
좀 더
therefore, even
R&D에
with their
투자할 수
limited
있는 그런
budget, they
관점이
can spend
생깁니다.
more on
그리고 기기
R&D
설비나 공간은
and
생각보다 굉장히 큰 비용을 차지하기 때문에
infrastructures, equipment,
실질적으로는
and
이제
space. They
본인
actually
것은
require a lot of
아니지만
capital
오너십은
and cost.
아니지만
So although they don't
활용할
have
수
the
있는
direct ownership,
다양한
if
기기와
they can
공간을
rely
활용할
on
수 있는
external
기획이
parties'
생기기 때문에
infrastructures or
이 부분이
equipment, then
오히려
that will
비즈니스를 더
enhance their
잘하고 R&D를
flexibility,
활용할 수 있는
and that will
방법에
be
좋은
beneficial for their
점이 될
businesses,
것이다.
and they can
그리고
focus
또
more
하나는
on
이제 뭐 많이
R&D.
언급된 것처럼 이제
Because they don't have to take
엑스퍼사이즈가
care of
되는 거니까
infrastructures,
우리한테 있지
and
않은
also they
기술과
can
경험을 확보해서
develop expertise better.
같이 이제 발전시킬 수 있는 기회로 될 수도 있고 서비스를 받을 수도 있는 것이
And
되겠죠.
also for
그리고
the areas
상대가
where they
이게
don't have
1단계에서
expertise,
성공한
they can
회사
rely on
입장에서도
external
마찬가지인데요.
services.
이게 스케일을 올리는 거는 생각보다 비용이 많이 들고
And
항상
scalability
기업 입장에서
requires high
부담이 됩니다.
cost,
지금
and it could be
저희가
pretty
생산하는
burdensome for
양이나 어떤
companies.
부분들이
So
지금
in
현재
order
우리
to
시장이
scale
어느
up the
정도 막고
production
있는데
capacity,
특정 상황 아주
it takes a lot of
대표적인 예가
money.
제가 생각하기에는 이제 코로나 19 사태인데요. 국내 진단
For example,
시장에서
like
실제적으로
during the
굉장히
COVID
많은
era,
회사가
we had a
진단
massive
기기를 내놓고 있죠.
demand for
RT-PCR
diagnostic
키트라든지
devices.
아니면 이제
And
항체,
so a lot of
항원
players,
국내는
new
항체는 이제
players
생각
mushroomed
없으니까
to
항원
produce
진단 키트를 내놓고
the
있는데 실제로로 생산하는
rapid antigen
공장은
test
그 회사
devices.
수로 봤었을 때 제가 알기로는 3분의 1 이하거든요.
However,
실제적으로 이제 많은 CDMO 형태로 CMO
I
형태로
believe that
그런
only
형태로
1/3
이루어지고
of them do
있다는 걸
have their
보여드릴 수
own
있고
production
그
facilities,
관점에서
and many
중요한
of them
거는
rely
지금
on
시장이
CDMO
얼마나
businesses.
갈지 모를 때 무작정
Because
대규모
there are
공장을 짓고
uncertainty in the COVID
기기를
market,
거기서
you
생산한다는
cannot
것도
make
맞지 않을 수도
investment
있다는 관점에서 중요한
to
포인트라고 봅니다.
expand your
마찬가지로 오픈
facilities
이노베이션의
or
기회는
establish new
양사에게
facilities
모두
only to
열려
respond
있는
to
것이라고
temporary demand. So in the sense, CDMO
정리하고
can
사실
be
저희
beneficial
회사는
from
그러면
client
어떤 거죠?
perspective
저희
as well.
회사가
And
정말
open
어떤
innovation and collaboration
CDMO나
is of course
CRM을 하고
important.
있느냐를 한번 정리를 해봤는데요. 사실은
Now let's take a look at what kind of CDMO
그
business DX and PX
한미약품 계열사인
provides.
코리그룹에서 투자한
So we are a sort of
캔서로비탄사가
the spun-off
이제
company
바뀐
from the Core
이름이고요.
Group, which
기본적으로
is a subsidiary of the
산전산후
Hanmi
진단을
Pharma.
오랫동안 해왔고
And we have been engaged in the prenatal diagnostics for a long time. And we also have a massive data of about 400,000 babies. So based on genomic data, we have provided the CRO solutions. And also we provide CDMO services as well. And our mid to long-term goal is to have vaccine development. So we also focus on vaccine businesses. So these are the business areas that we currently have. And also we, for the personal protection and the hygiene products, we also engage in this type of businesses. And I believe what's important for this type of business is to establish a platform. And here you can see our facilities. So we can provide CRO services for various types of the genomes. But our expertise lies more with the B2B business, so we are trying to expand the B2B business more. And as for the diagnostic devices, we produce the RT-PCR kit, and also we can produce the antigen and antibodies. And what's important is that we can actually produce from raw materials to the final product, and we also have the approved GMP facilities. So since Korea does have a small market, and therefore we now eye for the Chinese market, and we provide outsourcing solutions for many Chinese companies. And these are the certificates, of course. These are the certificates required for GMP facilities, and we have all of them. So far I have talked about the DX and VX. Basically, the genomic service is well known as a part of the CRO business. And what we focus on currently for CRO business is that we try to provide a customized solutions to clients. So as for the CRISPR, we have a long-term partnership with this company, and we have provided the customized solutions to this company for a long time. And recently, with Daewoo, we did the stem cell service for verification and validation. So although technologies are similar, but depending on technologies are similar, but I believe that the clients do have different requirements for data and also specific solutions. So we try to meet their needs. And when it comes to genomics, because it's in the diagnostic area, so we are subject to various regulations. However, TTC, the regulation is not as strict as with the genomics diagnostics, and so we have the collaboration with the Civita, Husu, and Helixo US for DTC business. And using Samsung Galaxy Watch for the sleeping and the exercise, we have developed product, and we are trying to expand this market as well. And also the project management service and other types of the consulting services are also very important. And in that regard, there is a brain research institute of the Johns Hopkins University Hospital. So currently we do have a partnership project with them. And because we are invested by the Korea, and they do have the COVID-19 immunoprofiling project, and currently, so we are also engaged in this project, receiving hospitals from Myeongji Hospital. And DX and VX has also inherited some of the projects from Korea, and we are now conducting pilot projects. And one of them is with the Chinese hospital, Beijing Union Medical College Hospital. It's a huge hospital, and it has massive numbers of the beds. So we are currently conducting the digital clinical trial with this hospital. And the Gemelli Hospital is located in Rome, Italy. And it's a hospital for Pontiff. And so for the obesity and diabetes, we are also conducting some clinical trials with this hospital. And as I said earlier, our IVD is the start of the CDMO business for our company. So we have provided the various products, for example, like the BioNTech and Prime 4DI. And aside from them, because we do have the patent facilities to produce our own gene products, and therefore we also have we also provide some custom chips to Angkor Farm and Beijing Children's Hospital.
이제 시작이기 때문에 저희가
And because
생각할
we
때는
are still in
글로벌
toddler's
협력이
phase,
중요하고
what's
DX,
important for
BX가
us is
허브를
global
하는 게 중요하다고
collaboration,
생각을 해서
and DX and
최근에
BX
이제
should
유펜
serve as a
스캔프
hub.
인피니플루이딕스 같은
So,
경우에는
for example, like the
이게
Infinifluidics, which is
반도체를
spin off
만드는
from the
세미컨덕터를
UPS,
이용한 칩 테크놀로지
and
기반의 애널리티컬
they are
혹은 이제 드럭
engaged in the
딜리버리 많은
analytical
기술을
and
좀 하고
manufacturing
있거든요.
businesses for
그쪽하고도
semiconductor
협력을
chip-based
해서 이제
technology,
특화된 CRO
and we do have a level
서비스를
collaboration
구축하려고
with
하고
them to
있고
provide specialized
AAT 같은
services,
경우도
and
이제
with
로마 그러니까
AAT,
이탈리아에 있는 볼로냐에
which is
존재하는
a
회사인데
Bologna-based
특히나
company,
미생물이나 뭐
and they
그
are
식품
specialized in
관련돼 있는
microbiome and food
어세스먼트에 특화돼
related
있고 이제
assessment
유럽에서
and quality
공인받은 기관인데
analysis,
저희
and it
쪽하고
is
이제
also
사실 관련이
certified
있어서 이제
European
업무
agency.
협력을 진행하고
So we
있고
have some
그리고
collaboration
업체가
with this
이런 걸
company as well.
얘기하면서
And the Corey
컨설팅
serves
기반의 여러
as a
가지
sort of the
서비스를 같이
intermediary connecting
포부
our
형태로
company
좀 더
to
개발할 수
various
있도록
global
노력을 할 예정입니다.
players.
이상입니다.
And with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
박수 한번 주시죠. 네, 발표 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much.
혹시 질문이 혹시 패널 토론에 참석 안 하실
So we are expecting some questions from the floor. If you haven't had a chance to raise your hand beforehand, now is the time. Otherwise, we would like to arrange the podium and we'll wait for your question later. So in the meantime, you can think of your questions. So you might ask questions relevant or irrelevant to the presentations.
예, 그러면 저희가 그 발표 중에
Thank you very much for waiting,
질문을 받을
and
못 드렸는데
we didn't give you a chance to raise your hand after each presentation, but now we have the general discussion and Q&A session. Whether it is relevant to the presentation or not, if you had a burning questions beforehand, before coming here, you can ask your questions. Now we will be happy to answer your questions.
전달해 주시죠.
Please, microphone is coming to you.
네, 재생의료진흥재단 박소라입니다.
From the Regenerative Disease Promotion Center, my name is Park Sora. Thank you very much for the presentation on CDMO, which is quite interesting nowadays. So CDMOs can work on this small volume and large items. And nowadays, we do have the opposite case for the newly arising applications. So with the technologies you are provided with, can you provide all the services if it is a small volume and large entities? If it is the cell lines, if it is working on the syringe, can you really work on that as well? And also in the emerging areas, the bio ventures are encouraged to work with the CDMOs if only they can afford use the CDMOs. So do you think that the private companies can afford to use CDMOs, and you don't need any role to be played by the government as a host or guidance? Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Mr. An to answer the question. An Jong-sung, please. Thank you very much for your very important question, Professor. First of all, when we have this cell and gene therapies that is in a small volume, large in these items, I don't think that we can do everything, as you said, because there is a huge variety of the products, and each of the project is very specific and very detailed and narrowed, so we cannot cover all of them. What is important, however, we have to find what our CDMO can do. We have to find them. What I think is that we can work on the processes. The POC, the proof of concept, is something to be borne by the developers, and we should be working on a very simple level of the protocols. So the simple protocols can be coming out of that. So if you really want to have the scaling up to the clinical styles, how can we optimize the whole processes? So that will be very important for us. So we should have the cooperation with the developers to a certain degree, and then after having the consultations in the process going forward to the GMO, we have to work on the mutual processes. when it comes to cost or affordability, still it is hurting. It is a difficult question. Of course, when we have the price of the pharmaceutical products, the products are quite expensive. And it's because of the scale of it, it's inevitable because when we have the small number of the products, the price should be high to accommodate all the expenses incurred so far. So the question is how we can solve the problem. Can the venture companies solve the problems? No, I don't think the CDMOs can afford to give solutions to these price issues or the expense issues. That's something we have to do in the future as our homework. For example, we can have the unit price going down a little bit through our cooperation or collaboration between the two parties. Maybe funding can be a solution, but I'm not able to mention funding issues here.
개인적으로 바이오약품
But personally speaking, when it comes to the pharmaceutical companies, I don't have much experience, so I cannot say anything. But non-pharmaceutical products, for example, we have the small scale, small volume production with large varieties, but we cannot just work on the price at the same time. I think it's a choice of the companies to go for that. Because if it is the perspective of the CDMOs, I can recommend something like this. For example, recently I've met with many CDMO companies that are working on a very small scales. They can have the collaboration experiences with other companies. They can find the multi-projects or co-projects with other companies. But these CDMOs should be also be ready to welcome that. So we have to wait and see what's happening. Yes, always the price can be a problem, but with the increasing requests by the CDMOs, probably we can have a different segmentation of the CDMOs serving the different needs and different segments. Probably we can have the meeting of the supply and demand so that they can find their ways to be served. Therefore, if we are growing in size, we should have the diversification of the segmentations as well, so they can find their segments to be paid for. Another question, please.
I really enjoyed the presentation. So for CDMO and CRO, I found that there are a lot of diverse areas within the business, and there could be some supply-oriented market or the segment with higher profitability. If so, then what are they? And also, what sectors do have the great potential for future, for growth? So your question is that the CDMO CRO business does have the diverse sectors, and in terms of the demand and supply, you want to hear about the future forecast and outlook, right? So whether there is any supplier dominating sector.
사실 그래도 공급자보다는 구매자가 많이 더 있다고 봐요.
I think that still the demand exceeds supply in many CDMO and CRO market. So as we may have heard from the three presentations, we see that we now have the new emerging sectors in the business, and they come together and which create and lead to the explosive growth in demand for CDMO business. And especially aside from the antibody therapeutics, for other businesses, CDMO is just in infancy. So in terms of from the client perspective with demand, they don't have many of them do not have the capacity for actual commercialization and production because many of their businesses are still in their infancy. And therefore, they can rely on specialized CDMO service providers for production. I'm not really used to that term, like supplier dominating market. And when it comes to the cell and gene therapy market, I would like to give you an example of the biovectors. So there are very limited suppliers, and therefore the developers, they want to produce the virus vector products, but they have to wait for 1 to 2 years. So this means that it is the market that's led and driven by suppliers. So for these types of the markets, some Korean players try to produce the virus-based products, and they try to merge that with foreign players. So technologically speaking, I don't think that it's simple. The technology is pretty complicated, and the market is growing and expanding because we have a very high demand for these types of products. So I think that these are the markets where the supplier is having a upper hand. But I believe that with the passage of time, there should be more suppliers, and there must be some balance between the demand side and supply side.
저도 추가로 말씀드리고
I also
싶은
want to add
거는
some comment.
기존에 이미 많이 시행돼 왔던 잘 알려진 항체의약품 위주의
So
특히
as
대규모
for the antibody therapies, it requires huge production capacity, and this is something that has been covered a lot by newspapers, so we can easily predict how big we should be. But however, there are also some emerging areas, and there are a lot of imbalance between supply and demand because they are just new.
그 부분들은 당분간은 이러한
And so for these new markets, I think that that imbalance will continue to stay there. And I think demand in many of these sectors, demand will continue to exceed supply.
Yes, you raised your hand, right? Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Lee Kwang-soo, team head of the GC Green Cross. So in your presentation, you talked about the companies that are now working on their services, but today you also talk about the big farmers that are looking for us. So we might have a list of these companies. Out of the list, which companies are our potential customers who want our services? And we have to look into the reasons why they want us. And even though we are going for the Asia Pacific market, the other pharmaceutical companies are looking for the US market or the European markets. So rather than having the services available in the US, if we have the services in Korea or in Asia, what is the advantage of that, having that service in Korea? So that was my first question. I'm waiting. Yes, I'll be briefly answering the question based on my experiences.
일단 첫 번째는
First of all,
수요하고
you have the
공급이
demand and
될 때
supply
내가 이제
when these two are meeting.
의뢰하고
For
싶다.
example, if you want to use a service by a CDMO, at that moment you have to know where these available equipments and facilities are. That's the first challenge you have to tackle.
전 세계의 그
All across the world,
CDMO를
CDMOs and CMOs
공급해주고 있는 회사들이
are
여러 있긴
used
있는데
by many suppliers.
대부분 그 회사들이
They do have some, but
항상
most of them are
그 여유가 있는 부분이 아니고요. 미스매치되는
not
부분이 꽤
always
있습니다. 그러다 보니까
spacey, or
그
they
상황의
can
그
have some
시점에서
mismatches between the demand and
잘
supply.
맞는
So
일단
at that moment of
자율업체들을
time, you
먼저
have to be
추려야
able
되고요.
to
그래서
select
그
the most
이후에
available ones
이제
first.
과연 그 제품을
And after that,
생산해서 어느 시장에 내보낼 거냐.
in what markets are you
선진
targeting?
시장으로
That's
갈
the
거냐,
question you have to
아니면은
ask.
뭐
To the
대상
advanced
시장에 갈
markets
거냐에
or
따라서
the third world markets, the less
CMO를
developed
선택해야 되는 기준이 또
countries.
생기게
Then
됩니다.
you have to have a
그랬을
different
경우에
criteria of choosing the CDMO for
한국에서의
that matter.
경쟁력이라고 할
So
수
if you
있으면
have the competitiveness in
그
Korea,
아직까지는 그래도 그
so
유럽에서
far,
생산하는 것보다는
rather than
공급
making
측면에서나
productions in the
시스템이
European
낫고
markets,
사실은
probably this system is better
한국에서의
in
제가
here.
생각하는 제일
So
큰
what I think
경쟁력이라는
in
거는
Korea as
어떻게
a
보면
biggest
직업
competitiveness
정신
is the
이런
professionalism
정도입니다. 그래서
of the talents here.
저희 같은 경우에 이제 해외
Something like
CMO도
that.
많이 써보고
I've been
그다음에
using
저희가
many
CMO를
CMOs from other
제공하고 뭐 이런
companies.
경우들이
I've been giving the services of CDMOs
거기서
to
느끼는
the
부분들이
clients.
보면
So far, what I have felt so far
선진
is
국가라고 해서
that
거기서 이제 CMO를 의뢰했을 때 보면
when we used advanced countries CDMOs, since they are with a reputation, they were slow in responding to my request. They have delays after delays in responding to me, and they didn't just get to me directly. So I was wondering why. But in Korea, our partners, the CDMOs, have been very responsive. They were trying to find solutions anyway, and using this and that tools and solutions. So that's one thing you have as an advantage here. Also, continuity of the process can be guaranteed. The success ratio of the sponsors can be high. So these are the advantages of having the services in Korea. For example, what is important is the process validation to have the approval of the products. If that's the case of this project, you have your timelines that you think of by each actor. If you have some glitches or problems that leads to the delay of the timeline, that will be a great loss incurred to the sponsors, and that can be solved by choosing the CDMO in Korea. Thank you very much.
Recently, because of the COVID-19, I think that we actually had a lot of difficulties in interaction and communication, and also European countries have been under lockdown, so it may have some difficulties in communicating with European countries. And as for the second question, my second question is that the bioventure using CDMO business, if they are in the phase of the commercialization, and if they start commercialization, this will enhance national competitiveness. So for companies who try to pursue license out and companies who try to commercialization, what is the ratio between them? And also if they want license out, then why? I think that this is more from the perspective of the people with demand side. But we are the suppliers. We are on the supplier side for CDMO business, so I'm not really in the right position to answer that question. But according to newspaper articles and press, the common question is that if you take into consideration cost and all the time that are required to reach phase 3 clinical trials, sometimes license out could be a better option. So there are always trade-off between the commercialization and the license out, and so you have to make the right choice in between them. BioVenture, the key success factor is to use the CDMO's one-stop service. So, for example, like the Binex, we have a lot of numerous cases, successful cases of the small-scale clinical trials. And for these types of the businesses, so would it be better to commercialize, or is it better to license out technologies to big farmers to earn a massive amount of money once? So from CDMO's perspective, which one do you think it's more advantageous? So given the Binance experience, yes, when they approach clients may say in this way that they are going to develop and do the license out. And when sponsors express such opinion, you cannot really resist that. And so large companies, they may be able to proceed to the commercialization and secure all the profit. But if you're not large enough, then you may have to choose for license out as well. So for companies who try to do license in, they want to see the quality of the product and the development. So for this, we have to provide the right CMC, and also we have to distinguish the target markets, whether it's the EMA or the FDA. And depending on that, we have to provide the right CMC documentation. So that's another important thing. And also the production facility should meet the client's demands.
Yes, for that matter, when we want to make a decision, the criteria should be the price versus the process up to the end of the pipeline and the market size that you can work on later when you have the products in. These two are the variables. From the perspectives of the CDMOs, the market size is actually the area of the developers, but the cost of the development can be also relevant to the CDMOs because CDMOs have been working on many other projects, but by that time they have some expertise getting the products done into the markets. They would have some estimation by now about the cost and the effort and time needed so they can have the consultation to talk about this matter. So any other questions, please? Yes.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very good and I appreciate it. The question, oh, I'm sorry. Do we have translation?
Yeah.
Okay. The question for you as far as Scrum, that is a new concept. What is the involvement that regulatory agencies have in the process? You mentioned that there is infrastructure, that it is not extensive, but there are regulations that anything that goes into a human has to be regulated by the FDA, MFDS, or other regulatory agencies. So what is it? How do you combine? Are you able to manage that?
Basically, when I looked into our concept about CDMO and our company doing the CRO and CDMO together, so that's why I could find the CRAM. But frankly, when I checked the CRAM on the website or the CDC, FDA, there is a specific regulation about the CRAM because I mean even the CDMO mostly are regulated by the GMP or other CGMP or some condition, right? But because this is not by regulation for technical, this is regulation for product mostly. So that's why I couldn't find any specific, at least US government doesn't have a specific regulation for CRAM. That's something what I know at this moment.
For Mr. Ant, what is the main on the CMO business? What is it? What do you consider to be the main key criteria for potential customers selecting a CMO partner?
I think the most important criteria is their. It's generally it depends on the product or the CDMO, the product scale, but totally I think the CDMO, the role of a CDMO business is the finding the best solution. Finding the best solution with the customer and like a sponsor. And for example, for some cell and gene therapy, in the case, the most important criteria is the development of the process for the product. But the technique, the most important technique is the process development and the product characterize. And in the case, the CDMO cannot find only by itself, and it's very depends on the customer's technique. And so the most important thing is the very blunt communication. Yeah, I think.
예, 지금 저희가 준비한 시간이 다 돼서
Because our time is up,
세션은 마쳐야 될 것 같고요.
we may have to conclude the session here. If you do have any additional questions,
개별적으로
please contact us individually.
답변드리도록 하겠습니다. 예, 참석해주셔서
And with that, thank you very much for your
예,
attendance, and we'll conclude the session.
수고하셨습니다.